businesses have been broken into. And we just kept hitting up issues all across the country. Ohio was interesting because it used to be a swing state, and now it's gone pretty much totally red. So we kind of looked into what was going on there. Just kind of depended where you were. But what was interesting is, like, you watch I was thinking about this today as we made it to California. You watch a lot of the cable news and you think the country is so divided, and it is in some ways. But when we just went out to these cities and towns all across America, you do kind of realize that people have more in common, I think, than they realize, and kind of all want the same thing.
Yeah, we're speaking with Brian Entin, News Nation correspondent, who is on a 2-week road trip. Brian, it sounds like it might end up being a 3 or a 4-week road trip, having to go. Are you going to fly back east, or are you going to drive back the other way when it's all over?
Yeah, I think we're going to fly back east just because we've done a lot of driving, and I think I'm going to end up actually in North Carolina for the actual election, which is obviously one of the swing states.
Yeah.
But I feel like I have interesting insight now, again, because some of my colleagues, and I've done this before in the past, you follow around the campaign, or you go to the rallies, and you just kind of hear the same thing over and over again. You meet the same kinds of people that support the candidates. But I found it much more interesting to just go out and talk to regular people.
Now, Brian, you said you spent some time here in Utah. It sounds like you were in the southwestern corner of the state there, with some time at Zion National Park and also some time up here north in Salt Lake City. What did you hear from Utah voters?
So what struck me in Utah, which is obviously a red state, but we heard from a lot of Republicans who weren't really very big Trump fans. And I don't know, maybe you could probably provide more insight because you guys lived there and talked to more people than I did. But we did a couple of focus groups in Utah of people who said, look, I've always voted Republican and I probably will again. But they were a little bit hesitant. They didn't really like Trump's personality and the name calling, and seemed to have more issues with that. And were just kind of torn. Like, they didn't want to vote for Harris, but they weren't huge fans of former President Trump, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, Brian, there are plenty of people, I can tell you, excuse me, myself. Sorry about that, folks. That there are plenty of people that are kind of holding their nose and going forward. So I have one question, excuse me, on what is on their minds. There was a statement made long ago, this was in the 90s, of it's the economy, stupid, right? During the Clinton presidency run, and the thought that the economy is really first and foremost. After traveling the country, do you think that statement is more true or less true after talking to this many people?
I think overall it's true. There were a lot of people that talked about grocery bills. My first thought was in Michigan. We talked to a lot of auto workers in Michigan who there's a couple of women that I'm thinking of that come to mind. We went to the Ford plant, and we went in the parking lot at shift change, and just hundreds of people come out when the shift change happens, and we just started talking to people. And there were a couple of women I spoke to who were lifelong Democrats, liked Kamala Harris, were excited about the potential of the first black female president, but said that they had bigger paychecks when Trump was in office, working at the plant, and that they had more overtime, and that there was this one woman who started crying, talking about she had 5 kids and just the grocery bills, and she can't save any money, and how, even though they liked Harris as a person, they were really leaning towards voting for Trump just because of the economy, and just feeling like, they needed more money.
Yeah, definitely. The economy has been a huge challenge, absolutely a top issue among voters. I know here in Utah, according to recent polling from Noble Predictive Insights, housing affordability is the number one issue in Utah across all political parties, certainly tied to inflation. So, yeah, this is really a concern. Brian, I want to ask about voting method. We have seen voter participation numbers coming from elsewhere in the country, from key swing states, and even here in Utah. It appears as if voters have a high degree of confidence in vote by mail and in early voting. Did you hear anything from voters about voting participation methods during your 2-week road trip?
Yeah, it was my sense that a lot of people were voting early. I think, the idea of election day kind of like an old school thing now, because in so many states you can go and do it earlier, you can mail it in. And, if you're busy, like a lot of the people we talked to were people who had jobs and had a lot of kids. And, it's hard to, something might come up if you wait till Election Day. It's just easier to do it on a Saturday or whatever. So I found that a lot of people were doing it early. There were a couple people that I talked to that I'm remembering now who, some people just, it's like almost nostalgic to vote on Election Day. They just like to do it. They kind of have like a little ritual, or they, want to take their kids on Election Day and kind of show them what it's like. So, but I would say primarily a lot of the people I talked to were planning to vote early.
Yeah.
So I had a question, Brian. Did down ballot issues really weigh heavily, or was everybody just wanting to talk about the presidential race as you traveled?
A lot of people were wanting to talk about the presidential race. That was kind of our main focus. I did find that, again, just when you watch the news, it's like you think that everybody leans one way or the other way, and they just got their mind made up. And I did find, there were people that were kind of torn in different directions. Like they liked Trump for one reason, but then at the same time liked Harris's policy on something else. Like I think that it's not as simple as, some people try to make it out to be, like in terms of the way people are thinking about the election. They don't all agree with everything the Republicans say and everything the Democrats say on the other side. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Brian Entin, senior national correspondent for News Nation, really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your day, out of your 2-week road trip across the country to join
Airstream and Zion. That sounds nice.
It's lovely. Sounds amazing. Thanks again, Brian. Coming up after the break, we'll continue the conversation, and we'll talk about healthcare here on Inside Sources.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. The Utah State Senator says he was troubled to learn that the Utah County Clerk had tracked how his ballot was submitted. Mike McKell tells David Dujanovic the clerk is wasting time just before an election tracking individual ballots.
I had a chance to review the process that Aaron Davidson went through to isolate my ballot. It is a very intensive process where he used a lot of time and resources to do it.
McKell says he didn't put a stamp on the ballot so he could test the Postal Service because County Clerk Davidson claimed the USPS is not the safest way to return those ballots. The state elections office official, though, pointed to his choosing not to provide postage on the ballots as a source of unneeded confusion. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. New numbers out from the government today show the economy is growing and people are spending money. The Commerce Department says the U.S. economy grew at a healthy 2.8% from July through September, and consumer confidence also up by 3.7%. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average into negative territory now, 90 points right now, while the NASDAQ has dropped 104. And our KSL weather. Looks like we've got a little bit of rain around. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
We were living in D.C. and we were ready to buy our first house, but it was in Salt Lake City.
I found out through family that the house that my dad grew up in was put on the market.
We had less than 24 hours to put an offer in, and it happened to be on New Year's Eve.
So we immediately contacted our realtor. She was on it from the very beginning. We got the house.
We got the house. Being 2,000 miles away, our realtor really helped us. And there's no way we would have gotten the house if we didn't have our realtor.
Discover how a realtor can make a real difference at myrealtorstory.com.
Imagine a currency that has true value, a currency that's local, protects your wealth, and resists inflation. Now imagine that currency is anchored to the stability of gold. Introducing Goldbacks, a currency made of 24-karat gold, accepted at over 800 businesses in Utah. Don't just imagine it. Visit alpinegold.com to start spending in gold. Use promo code RADIO to get free shipping on orders of over $200 or more.
Seems like all this artificial intelligence stuff stirs up the age-old debate of man versus machine. Hi, it's Dan from the Good Feet store, and let me ask you, would you let a robot cut your hair? Would you rely on an app to teach a kid to ride a two-wheeler? Let's face it, some things require the human touch. People come to us seeking a solution to foot, leg, and back pain after trying all kinds of things recommended by in-store machines or website blurbs. An impersonal, generic approach to solving a problem that's unique to you. No wonder they usually don't work. At the Good Feet store, you'll meet with an arch support specialist who will take the time to learn about your needs, your feet, your lifestyle, and then fit you from over 300 models and sizes of arch supports, designed for pain relief, better balance, and more comfort. See what we can do for you with a free fitting. Just stop in or schedule an appointment. With over 200 stores, there's likely one near you. Find yours at goodfeet.com.
The Good Feet store. Walk-ins welcome, or visit goodfeet.com for more information.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Tino Nani.
Looks like we have a little bit of weather near the mouth of Parley's Canyon, but it is not affecting the drive. I-80 is clear. However, we do have some busy traffic conditions on northbound State Street, Midvale to Murray. Common Spirit hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advanced healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness. I'm Tito Nani in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy with a high of 48 and a chance of showers. Tomorrow's high 55 with just a slight chance of rain. And right now we're looking at 46 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your guest host, Rusty Cannon, here with Taylor Morgan. It's been fun. We've covered an hour. We're now sprinting through the second hour of the show.
Hour two, Rusty.
That's
the
right.
show is flying by.
It's flying by. Here we go. All right, now we're going to talk about another issue that is on everybody's mind, and that is the cost of health care. Taylor, as you know, this is an issue. We know housing is a big issue in Utah. We've talked about that at length. But we know not only in Utah but nationally, health care costs rising as dramatically as they do, it seems like every year, go up and up and up. This is a big issue.
Rusty, how's your health care?
I'm happy with what I have, but when you kind of peel the layers back and you look at the costs involved, it is pretty ugly to see.
My health care, I am not ashamed to say this. I'm embarrassed, but I participate in a private employer health care plan, a small group plan, own my own firm, and I pay more per month for my health care plan than I pay for my mortgage.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Okay, so I believe it.
It is not cheap. I've been generally happy with the quality of health care I've received, and I have access to great doctors and a great network, but it is incredibly expensive. And every year, we take a real hard look to try to find less expensive options that provide, similar access and quality, and we can't do it. I have access to the most affordable plan possible, but Rusty, it is wildly, wildly expensive.
So joining us on this segment, we have a real treat to have Dr. Joseph Jarvis. He has practiced family medicine and organized public health services for over 35 years. So he knows what he's talking about here. So Dr. Jarvis, thanks for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
So give us a quick bottom line, and then we'll get into details. Is there hope to fix this system? Should I be smiling?
Well, the first thing is to say is yes. Of course, there's always hope. It takes a lot of effort for people to get their minds around what you were just talking about, that costs are going up very fast. In fact, a study that a group that I was working with paid for recently found that over the past 30 years, Utah's had the second fastest growth rate in healthcare costs in our nation.
Oh, wow.
And if that rate continues, we will double health expenditures in Utah every decade from now on.
Dr. Jarvis,
it's just not,
what is the reason for that?
It's not sustainable.
What is the reason for that cost increase?
We have two major problems in the American healthcare system. One is it's incredibly complex, bureaucratic, administratively burdensome. That overhead is enormous. It's a cost ranging up to $500 to $600 billion a year. nationwide, and it grows faster than the actual cost of the care does. That's taken up. So that's number one. Number two, despite what your perception is, Americans have, at best, mediocre quality health care, and actually, in comparison to other first world nations, much worse health care. Bad health care, poor quality health care costs more. So those are the two reasons why our health care in the United States is so expensive. We have an administratively burdensome system that's very complicated, and we have poor quality care. And we can fix both of those. You asked the question, can we go somewhere with this? Yes. That we can have better quality care, which will cost less, and we can simplify. So the motto is better, simpler care in the future. That's what we've got to reach for.
Okay, so what can we do to reform it down that lane?
Well, we have to actually come up with a new way of financing healthcare. The administrative burden that I've been talking about, that's inherent in the business practices and the business model of private for-profit American health insurance. We have got to change that way of doing business. Now, I know that's a steep uphill political climb, but that's what's in front of us. It actually is related to the poor quality care because health insurers don't care. When they pay for things, they don't care whether it's good quality, bad quality, or whether people get access to it. I mean, access is another point I need to make here. Utah was recently rated the worst state in the nation for healthcare access by Forbes. Worst state in the nation for healthcare access. We're paying a heck of a lot, and actually overall in Utah's population, we're getting less for it. We need to make a system that provides access for everybody so that they all get high-quality care. That's a steep uphill political climb, but it's doable.
Yeah. We're speaking with Dr. Joe Jarvis about the future of healthcare reform in Utah, the high cost of healthcare. Dr. Jarvis, we talk a lot about transparency when it comes to the cost of healthcare. And to be completely honest with you, I gave up long ago on trying to understand what went into the cost of healthcare with my plan. I have no idea. I don't even know how I would find that information if it was accessible. So, like, transparency, I think, is a huge part of this. Maybe that's just my failure, but I have a sense that it's not just me that can't figure out what costs what when it comes to healthcare options. How do we address transparency?
Transparency it's not your fault, okay?
Thank you. I feel better.
The prices for healthcare, the prices for services, the prices for a hospital bed, the prices for medications, medical devices, et cetera, those are not made available to the general public, to the patient. And you know, let's put it this way: if you have a heart attack and fall down on the street and somebody comes, sends an ambulance and rescues you, are you going to care what the price is? Or will you even be able to process it? Transparency, what I'm trying to say to you here is transparent prices sounds like a great thing, and it appeals to our market-based kind of mindset that we have in the United States. But healthcare is not a market commodity.
Interesting.
It doesn't work. It does not work under market principles. So transparency isn't actually the issue. Yes, the hospitals are preaching, and I don't know where they're getting those numbers from that produce their prices. It doesn't have anything to do with what it actually costs. Transparency implies that we have to get a handle on actually charging the society healthcare prices that are related to what it really costs to deliver the product. And that is a societal issue. We as a community need to hold the hospitals accountable. The individual patient simply can't do it because they're sick. They're a patient. There's no way they can actually serve as the consumer in a marketplace and push back and say, oh, well, that's too expensive. No, I don't want that IV. Well, of course, you've got to have that IV, right? But, so you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
We've got to stop thinking about this as a market-related thing and instead say we're going to act together as a community and assure that everybody gets the service, and then turn around and say to the providers of the service, we're holding you accountable for making sure that the price really reflects the true cost of the care.
So let me ask a different question on how you pay for this. What are your thoughts on the HSA model having more skin in the game for those paying for it? Like I have an HSA plan. I like to think I can have a little bit more shopping power with that, where I have that initial skin in the game and are more into preventative type items.
Yeah,
so
you're talking health spending account, right?
Yeah. Sorry. What are your thoughts on that model?
So it's kind of an ironic way of describing how to do a health policy, that we have to have the patients have their skin in the game, because really their skin's
bad
already
analogy.
there, right? I mean,
you get what I'm saying.
That isn't how
Dr. Jarvis just called you out,
like
Rusty.
Yes. So that kind of process is, again, based on the idea of a market, that somehow healthcare is a market commodity, and that people who get something for free will demand too much of it, will actually want more than what they need, or that artificially increases the demand. In fact, there is no relationship in healthcare between the demand for healthcare and its price. I'll give you an illustration. I'm not a diabetic, so I don't care how low you price insulin. I'm not going to buy it. You can give it to me for free, and I won't take it home because I don't want to take up room in my refrigerator with it. Okay? There is no relationship between the price of insulin and my demand, or the demand of all of us who are in society who don't have diabetes. We don't care what the price of insulin is. On the other hand, if I need an appendectomy, do I care what the price is? I mean, if I don't get that surgery, if I don't get that surgery, I die, right? I don't care what you charge for it. That's an inflexible, again, relationship between price and demand. So what you're trying to do with an HSA is increase the price and therefore decrease the demand. And what I'm telling you is that doesn't work, because healthcare is not a commodity, and there is no relationship between the demand for healthcare and its price.
We're speaking
so we need to stop thinking about those ideas that are market-based.
I apologize there. Excuse me, Dr. Jarvis. I just wanted to remind our listeners that we're speaking with Dr. Joe Jarvis about healthcare and potential healthcare reform in Utah. Certainly a top issue. Rusty, recently polling here in the state of Utah by Noble Predictive Insights, asking Utah voters what their top concerns or policy issues are. Across the board, among Utah voters of all parties, healthcare was listed as a top 5 issue.
Yep.
So it is something that Utah voters are concerned about. Dr. Jarvis, we really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us here on Inside Sources. We will continue to track this story and have you back soon.
I'd love to be here. Thank you very much.
Coming up next here on KSL Inside Sources, we are going to talk about some of the other issues on your ballot this November, including the Zoo, Arts, and Parks bond in Salt Lake County. That's coming up after the break.
What is even happening?
BYU takes the win.
What a great play call.
It's a sunshine celebration.
Congrats to our BYU Cougars, tracking to the Big 12 championship game with win number 8. Listen to Cougar Sports Saturday this weekend from noon to 3 on your legacy home of the Cougars, KSL News Radio.
Don't you deserve health care you can count on? Well, you can count on United Healthcare with Medicare plans that fit your life today and as your needs change tomorrow. You can enjoy reliable coverage and low out-of-pocket costs with a Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare. United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plans. Made for Utah, trusted everywhere. The Medicare annual enrollment period ends December 7th, so go to uhc.com/Medicare today.
How was your drive to school?
Let me tell you, I had to get my iced coffee first. I just can't seem to put it down. My favorite rapper just announced a tour. My phone was buzzing like crazy. I'm so excited. I had to text all my friends right then to talk about it. Then, someone started calling me and...
Let's try that again.
I turned my phone off right away. I never drive distracted.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
This is the story of a very special woman. Just a few knew about her superpowers. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help.
Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
When it comes to your electrical system, do you know the warning signs to look for? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and it's okay if you don't know, but here are a few things that you might not even realize could be a sign of a bigger problem. Wall plates that are hot to the touch, discoloration around switches or outlets, if you hear crackling or popping or buzzing around switches or outlets, a breaker that trips a lot, switches that feel loose when you operate them, if your lights dim or flicker when a major appliance comes on, if your plugs fall out of the wall easily. You know, you're not supposed to have to bend the prongs out on a plug just to get it to stay in the wall. If you notice any of these things, you should consider having a licensed electrician check your system out. If you don't know anyone, Any Hour Services has put together a radio-only special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive electrical inspection and give you a full written report for only $29. But you have to mention this ad when you call. To schedule your comprehensive electrical inspection by a licensed electrician for only $29, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7300. That's 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
Get up to a 30% upfront bonus to use for your retirement income, or up to 12% per year to help grow your retirement income. Whether you're in retirement or will be retiring within 10 years, Trajan Wealth can offer some of the highest guarantees in the business. I'm Jeff Jr. with Trajan Wealth, and I know no one wants to work forever. We all need to retire someday, and I know you've worked hard for your money, so now is the time to guarantee it. Take advantage of up to a 30% upfront bonus for your retirement income, or up to 12% per year for retirement income. Don't woulda, shoulda, coulda. Get up to a 30% bonus just for opening an account, or up to 12% per year for retirement income. Don't leave your retirement to chance. Retire the right way, the Trajan way, with Trajan Wealth. Call Trajan today at 801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Annuity guarantees are based on the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. DBA in most states has Trajan Wealth Insurance Solutions.
Dave and Dujanovic.
What our listeners need to know is what's going on behind the scenes. We hold weekly meetings on how to do our jobs as talk show hosts, as journalists, better than we did them yesterday.
There's some very conservative voices. There's some very liberal voices. But there is space for both. And we're not at each other's throats. We're not yelling at each other. We're having a discussion.
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a state senator says he's upset that the Utah County Clerk tracked down ballots sent in by individual politicians. Second, the U.S. economy growing at a rate that makes economists smile, just under 3%. And third, the whale statue in the 9th and 9th neighborhood got some unwanted graffiti overnight. 46 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. This is Taylor Morgan alongside Rusty Cannon, filling in today for Boyd Matheson. Rusty Cannon, you have a lot of insight into this next topic. We're going to talk about the Zoo, Arts, and Parks tax in Salt Lake County. Rusty Cannon, you are the former president of the Utah Taxpayers Association. You know more about these kinds of taxes than anyone would ever admit to knowing. Tell us about this tax, your history with it. What do voters in Salt Lake County need to know?
Well, it's exciting stuff, let me tell you.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's so exciting. But okay, so this has been many decade-long battle as far as Taxpayers Association and how this goes. And I'm not there anymore, but I'm going to speak to the history of this. So thankfully, originally when this tax was brought forward, what we're talking about is the Zoo, Arts, and Parks. It's also sometimes known as the RAP tax or Recreation, Arts, and Parks, depending on where you are.
Got to have a good acronym for the tax, right?
Yeah, exactly, in implementing it. It's typically 0.10%. And you think, oh, come on, that's so small. Why would you oppose something like that? Well, let me tell you to why it's an issue. So if you buy a burger in Salt Lake City, and this is the same in any city around the state, you'll pay a different sales tax rate, most likely than the neighboring city. And there's about 7 or 8 layers that add up to the total rate. So in Salt Lake City, it's currently 7.75%, but it could go to 8. Well, actually, it's going to 8.25 because they voted to implement the extra 0.5% for the hockey stadium.
That's right, yeah.
But let me tell you all the layers. 4.85% is just the state base rate. Then there's a 1% local sales tax, typically for counties, those types of things. Then, believe it or not, there are probably 5 different transportation taxes in Salt Lake City. 0.25 as far as a county option tax, but then you go into these transportation taxes where you have another 0.30% for mass transit, another 0.25% for extra mass transit. Then you have another 0.25% on more transit and transportation, and another 0.25 on the same subject. Then you continue over and you have another 0.10% for zoo, arts, and parks. And in Salt Lake City, you have what I used to call the prison tax, 0.50%, which is called the correctional facilities tax, which was nothing more than a bribe to get Salt Lake City to allow the prison to be moved to Salt Lake City. I'm sorry to be punchy, but that's really what happened. And so you're paying 7.75. So then everybody gets upset when an association says, no, don't vote for this 0.10%. How could you? Doesn't everybody like zoo, arts, and parks? The point is death by 1,000 cuts. And these layers are added on year after year by the legislature in just little increments. And when everybody gets all upset over 0.5% more for a hockey arena, we mentioned, okay, where were you when it was the 0.1 or the 0.25 and all that? It adds up.
This is tough, Rusty, because on one hand, I generally like the idea of putting this decision to the voters every 10 years to renew this kind of a tax. In years past, it has passed on the ballot. Voters have generally supported the ZAP, the Zoo, Arts, and Parks tax.
Mm-hmm.
However, I'm torn. Is it good that we have voters renew this every, so often on the ballot? Personally, I do believe in our Republican representative form of government where we would have elected officials making these kinds of budget decisions for us. So walk me through this, and I'm not asking you to take a position for or against. Just walk me through the pros and cons, perhaps, of having the voters renew this versus having budget decisions made by elected officials.
Yeah, great question. I think it is very valuable to have voters weigh in. It's similar to our truth in taxation laws on property tax, where the voters aren't necessarily weighing in, but elected officials have to make their case to voters and then vote in public to increase property taxes. In this case, they every 10 years have to make the case as to why this tax should be there, and they have to justify it. And it's a healthy exercise, and there's nothing wrong with it. There was legislation, and I guarantee it'll come again, that we actually fought at the time that tried to get rid of this 10-year renewal and have no vote, and it goes on in perpetuity, or move it out to 20 years or something like that, where people essentially forget about it. That is not good, because then you're totally disconnected from it. Once it's implemented and forgotten about, it's just there. So we made sure that, nope, that wasn't moving forward. Let's keep that 10-year renewal. So there's a healthy process every 10 years to where they have to make the case to voters, document where the money went, how much it's raising, here's all the great stuff we've done with it, and the people can renew it if they want. Yeah. Typically these pass, but not always.
In 2014, the Zoo, Arts, and Parks tax was up for renewal 10 years ago in Salt Lake County. It passed with 77% approval.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me in Salt Lake County.
Now, fast forward to 2024, Rusty. Right now, currently, here in Utah and in Salt Lake County, I have the sense that voters are a little bit frustrated with tax increases.
Oh, yeah.
With property taxes going up, there's this sense of frustration about what happened in Salt Lake City, I think, and again, these aren't my words, but this notion of bailing out billionaires, right, with tax increases to pay for things like sports arenas. That is a sentiment that does exist among Utah voters.
Oh, yeah.
In your experience, this is something that you've tracked for years and years. Do you think that is going to have an impact potentially on how the ZAP tax does on the ballot?
Oh, it absolutely can. We would often get calls from taxing entities that were sort of thinking about doing a tax increase in the future. They wanted to call us and say, hey, what do you think of this? Do you think we'd have opposition? A lot of them, I would tell them, listen, your plan is decent and it's sound and it might pass on its own, but your problem is not your tax hike. Your problem is everyone else's, because your school district's doing it, or I'm making up examples.
Well, and we have that happening right now, of course. And again, I'm not criticizing any of these ballot measures. They all have compelling pros and cons, right? That's a separate conversation. But just the existence of bonds and tax increases on the ballot, or having already passed recently in city councils, definitely something that is going to influence, I think, the outcome here.
Oh, yeah. And I don't live in Salt Lake County right now, but I'm going by memory. I think in Salt Lake City, there's a big, huge school bond. Then you have this tax issue. You have other school districts with bonds or other types. There's the Salt Lake County, is it a justice bond? I don't know if I'm using the right term.
The public safety bond,
safety,
the $500 million. Yeah.
You could have a voter voting on maybe 4 layers.
That's right.
And you can't fault them for saying no to all of them, of saying, okay, no, too much at once.
Yeah.
And this comes on the heels of years of massive property tax increases for most taxpayers, not necessarily for the taxing entities, but the shift you saw, and this is a bit of a complicated explanation, but they're still very mad about a raise in property taxes, which has nothing to do with this specifically, but they are still very, very upset about it, and justifiably so.
And Rusty, I have not heard a lot of communication, a lot of advocacy, really seen much outreach on behalf of the ZAP tax on the ballot this year.
Yeah, typically there is an effort on the pro side of it. I haven't heard or seen. I believe there's one in Davis County. I'm trying to remember now as well, and I haven't heard a peep.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong.
It's interesting. Definitely something we will track. I do want to make sure that we're covering this fairly and give a moment of time to the current president of the Utah Taxpayers Association, Billy Hesterman. Billy Hesterman said, quote, "We love the zoo. We love the parks. We want to see them funded, but let's do it out of the general fund instead of always having an earmarked source." With that said, to be clear, the Utah Taxpayers Association is not actively campaigning against the ZAP or the RAP taxes. But some good insight there, I thought, from Billy Hesterman, your successor at the Taxpayer Association.
Yeah, we'll have to get him on sometime. It's a good perspective, and like I said, this is an issue that the Taxpayers Association has been wading through for decade after decade. This will be interesting to see how a lot of these local issues come about with the vote counting that we're going to see in about 6 days. I'm excited for it. All right, stick with us. We are going to move back to national politics on the next segment. We'll be right back.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour: the 9th whale got tagged overnight with an image of 2 men standing at the door of a bathroom asking a man inside if he'd voted. The men outside wore black uniforms and red armbands with pictures of a donkey and an elephant. Dominic Smith works across the street at Cafe Espresso, and he says it appeared to be somebody trying to imitate the style.
I suppose. I mean, it's been defaced before, so this is certainly like a more artistic take on the graffiti that's been on there as compared to the past.
The city's already removed the graffiti. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The White House trying to explain President Biden's comments last night about the supporters of former President Trump.
Just to clarify, he was not calling Trump supporters garbage, which is why he this is why he wanted to make sure that we put out a statement that clarified what he meant and what he was trying to say.
And that's Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre. Former President Trump, though, has picked up on the remark, repeating it at his campaign stops today. Your money at this moment: the Dow Jones average closed trading down 91 points this afternoon. The NASDAQ down 104. The S&P 500 was down 19. And it looks like we've got some clouds around still with cooler temperatures. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
If you need a new roof, there's a reason IWC Roofing is the #1 residential roofing contractor in Utah. IWC has been replacing roofs for 27 years. They are professionals. You don't get some janky subcontractor fiddling around up there. You get experienced IWC employees on your roof, and they finish most jobs in a single day. They're in, they're out, and they power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now you're wondering about the price. After all, IWC is one of the few Owens Corning Platinum certified contractors in the entire state, but they offer value pricing, and right now, Take advantage of their fall special. $2,000 off your quote. And of course, they'll work with you on financing, so call IWC Roofing, the highest rated roofing contractor in Utah, plus $2,000 off. Right now, call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690, or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Febreze. So my home is also my office. And before I can focus, every room's gotta be clean. That means tidying up and spraying my Febreze Air Mist. Ooh, that's fresh. Febreze Air Mist scents are all high quality. They fight any weird funk, and they give my air an instant boost of freshness. So not only does my home smell good, I feel good too. After I Febreze, it's time to start my day.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Everywhere you look, things are getting more expensive. So at Consumer Cellular, we're lowering the price for those 50 and up. Now you can get unlimited talk, text, and data for $30 a line when you buy two. That's just $60 a month for 2 unlimited lines. So if you're 50 and up, make the switch and save. Come on, you've earned this. Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com today. Requires 2 lines of service, age validation, and credit approval, subject to system and area limits, taxes, and other fees apply.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents a gallon. And here's Tito Nani.
Heavy and slow northbound I-15 in South Salt Lake from 33rd to 2100 South. We also have a report of an accident near 3300 East and about 3800 South, as well as a crash clearing at State Street and 100 South. I'm Tito Nani in the KSL Traffic Center.
Partly cloudy skies with a high of 48 and a chance of showers. Tomorrow's high 55 with just a slight chance of rain. Right now, 46 degrees. It's mostly cloudy. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm Rusty Cannon here with Taylor Morgan. This has been a fun couple of hours. We're going to round off the next couple of segments. We're going to keep talking about our favorite subject, politics, as that rules the day right now. This is something I was really looking forward to talking about because I think this was a monumental decision, and I thought it was meaningful, and it was interesting to hear what he said. I'm talking about the owner of the Washington Post. We all know him, Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon.
Also the man who owns my front porch and my cardboard recycling bin.
That's right. And owns most things that I watch for entertainment now with my Amazon Prime.
Turns out he also owns one of the nation's largest and most prominent newspapers.
Exactly. And we'll get into the details and his thoughts on that. So what they did in recent days, and you saw all kinds of people just thinking, cats and dogs were raining from the sky, and it was just terrible. He made the decision. I think it was essentially him, to say that the Washington Post will no longer endorse in presidential elections after typically having done this for quite some time. So he actually wrote an op-ed that was published on October 28th. I just want to read.
Is it an op-ed if you own the paper?
I guess so. It's kind of like they just do what you want. But this is interesting what he said. And I'm just going to read 2 quick paragraphs, and I'd like to get your thoughts. And this is quoting him. In the annual public surveys about trust and reputation, journalists and the media have regularly fallen near the very bottom, often just above Congress. But in this year's Gallup poll, We have managed to fall below Congress.
That's a low bar.
That is a low bar. Our profession is now the least trusted of all. Something we are doing is clearly not working. Let me give an analogy. Voting machines must meet 2 requirements. They must count the vote accurately, and people must believe they count the vote accurately. The second requirement is distinct from and just as important as the first. Likewise, with newspapers, we must be accurate and we must be believed to be accurate. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but we are failing on the second requirement.
That is really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, he was very plain spoken about this.
So this was a bit of a controversy, Rusty, and it's something that we have talked at great length about on KSL at Night. That is the political focus program here on KSL News Radio, 7 to 9 p.m. on weeknights. And one of the clear takeaways here is that many employees at the Washington Post were outraged.
They lost their minds.
Many resigned,
Yeah.
and many penned letters or op-eds in other outlets, just really going on and expressing their extreme frustration or disappointment with the fact that the Washington Post did not make an endorsement in the presidential. Rusty, I do think Jeff Bezos is onto something here when he talks about how readers, how American voters don't trust the media. Now, I think a lot of that is maybe not necessarily based on facts. I think that there have been a lot of conspiracies, a lot of ideas, and a lot of false claims out there about the press. However, that said, I think bias in media is real.
Yeah.
We have Jeff Bezos here owning the Washington Post, having an impact on its lack of endorsement in the presidential race.
Yeah.
We saw what I thought was a very odd and disappointing choice by the Los Angeles Times, with also not making endorsement in the presidential race because they didn't think Kamala Harris's position on Israel was sufficiently pure.
Wow.
So the ownership of news outlets is absolutely a factor when it comes to people trusting the content, right, of that news source. So I do believe that Bezos is onto something critical here. It is important. But let me ask you this, Rusty. How much of this frustration or this skepticism about news outlets has to do with Americans just understanding of existing biases? For example, many of the employees of the Washington Post who resigned in outrage, I believe, did so because they expected the Post to endorse Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And when the Post didn't, they were outraged by that. Now, that entitled expectation of the endorsement for one side, I believe that just might be the problem itself. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. In fact, he spoke to that. He said, and I'm quoting him again, most people believe the media is biased. Anyone who doesn't see this is paying scant attention to reality, and those who fight reality lose. And so he was talking about just credibility. I think everyone believes the media is biased, and with the resignations that you saw, I think that further proves his point. And he said something else that was meaningful, and I thought this was almost funny. Presidential endorsements do nothing to tip the scales of an election. No undecided voter in Pennsylvania is going to say, I'm going with newspaper A's endorsement. None, period. That was quoting him.
Okay, do you believe that? Do you agree with that?
I do. I
Okay.
don't think, in today's world, with all due respect to newspapers, they don't have the clout they used to. I don't know if it made a difference in the old days as well. But what he's talking about as well is that what these endorsements actually do is create the perception of bias. Now, and I think that perception is real based on all of the employees that are jumping ship or being so mad that, we all know that this is so biased. And what he's pointing to is wanting to just make more of a principled decision and say, listen, we are not going to do this. We need to just refrain from it. And apparently, according to him, from 1933 to 1946, the publisher, Eugene Meyer, who was the publisher at the time of the Post, did this exact same thing. So that was 13-year span from 33 to 46, not endorsing. But then it sounds like they probably picked that up afterwards and taken it from there.
I think the real problem here is not that these news sources have stopped making endorsements, Rusty. I think the problem here is that voters were just the expectations of the endorsements was such that voters became skeptical because they saw clear bias.
Yeah.
Right? If a certain paper always endorses candidates of one party every cycle in every election, the value of that endorsement, I think, is greatly diminished. We've seen that in Utah. Here in Utah, the two largest print publications, the Deseret News and the Salt Lake Tribune, neither of them do endorsements in candidate races anymore.
Yeah.
In years past, I think their endorsements did have an impact. I think that these print outlets, at least in the past, have been trustworthy and have been credible sources. So they don't make endorsements anymore. That's, I believe, a decision made structurally and internally at those outlets.
Yeah.
So without endorsements, without big newspapers like the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, without local print outlets here in Utah doing endorsements, where do voters go for trusted, reliable information about candidates? Because I do believe, even though I share the skepticism and I don't disagree with Jeff Bezos that newspaper endorsements don't matter. Like, I think that has become the reality, but I do believe they used to matter. Where today can voters go to help inform their decision?
Well, I think today you can go just about anywhere and gather information. Think about
TikTok.
I mean that seriously. Whether it's TikTok or X, Twitter, social media, the internet, all that, we are 24/7 able to plug in and gather as much information as we want. Whether it's correct or not, that's a different story. But we are flooded with information. We are no longer in a world where what you had was the newspaper and the 6 or 10 p.m. news. Like that's just not the way things are anymore. So I think it's a different world, and there are plenty of places for people to find information. And to his point, I think he said it very well. I don't think anybody, maybe there's one or two people, here or there, but anybody's like, well, I can't decide who to vote for. I got to wait and tell me what the Washington Post says, so I can decide who to vote for. I don't think it just has the sway that it had.
Well, and the Post coverage, right, of candidates and campaigns and issues can certainly have an impact and continue to have a big impact. I want to wrap this segment up with Jeff Bezos' closing statement in the op-ed that he penned in the Washington Post. He stated, quote, "While I do not and will not push my personal interest, I will also not allow this paper to stay on autopilot and fade into irrelevance, overtaken by unresearched podcasts and social media barbs, not without a fight. It's too important. The stakes are too high." Rusty, end quote. Rusty, it'll be very interesting to see where the Washington Post goes from here.
Yeah.
How Bezos' ownership plays a role in the paper's coverage and future. Yeah. Something that we will continue to watch. Listeners, stay right here with us on KSL Inside Sources. Coming up after these messages, Rusty and I are going to break down politics and the election and have a little bit of fun. It's coming up right after the break.
Hi, this is Doug Wright with yet another great experiment you can try right there at home. I want you to take 4 bags of water softener salt. Lift 3 of the bags with one hand, good luck on that, and 1 bag with your other hand. Now, if you're like most people, you'll probably find that 3 bags of salt weigh about 3 times as much as 1 bag of salt. And that's an important thing to keep in mind when you're shopping for a water softener. You see, Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer, their water softeners are so well designed, they use only 1 bag of salt for every 3 that other water softeners use. Now, I can't speak for you, but I'm not a fan of lower back pain, and as our little experiment has hopefully demonstrated, carrying that 1 bag of salt, it's a lot easier on your back than carrying 3. That's just one of the many reasons you should look into water softeners from Connecticut of Utah, an authorized Connecticut dealer. To learn more, call Connecticut of Utah, 801-576-8600, or go to softwaterutah.com.
This Friday from 10 to 1, the movie show comes to Sound Sleep Medical. But first, take the time to learn about a better night's rest. Sound Sleep Medical delivers oral appliance therapy that treats sleep apnea without the use of CPAP machines. They're professionally fit, warranted, and covered by most major medical insurance. In the days of a poor night's sleep, Sound Sleep Medical will help. Call Sound Sleep Medical at 801-716-8672 for details. Sound Sleep Medical.
If you ordered a steak sandwich and they served you bologna, you'd be ticked off.
B-O-L-O-G-N-A or B-A-L-O-N-E-Y. It doesn't matter how you spell it. It's still baloney.
Hi, this is Jason.
And Kathy of Window World.
We could go on and on about Window World, but folks, it's all about you.
Your home and what you need.
Window World is America's #1 window replacement company.
Call Window World at 801-281-8111.
Or check windowworldutah.com. And as Doug always said,
that's no baloney. We have 5 kids, 2 dogs, and we've bought 4 houses in the last 12 years. So our realtors helped us through the complexities of buying a house, the legalities of different property rights, right-of-ways, building concerns, or even ordinances, right?
If we were to try to do this on our own, we would have made a lot of financial mistakes. The realtor is now part of our family. She's who helps our family get to wherever our next chapter is.
Discover how a realtor can make a real difference at myrealtorstory.com.
Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. Be advised, this is your opportunity to save up to 40 to 80% on a hot tub or swim spa. This weekend only, Friday through Sunday, Utah State Fair Park. 18-month interest-free financing. Our factories have demanded we sell 1,000 hot tubs and swim spas this weekend. Utah State Fair Park. Huge factory incentives, factory rebates, this weekend only. Utah State Fair Park. We can remove your old hot tub. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Hot tub starting at $2,999. Utah State Fair Park. Free delivery of your new hot tub. Just relax and enjoy. Utah State Fair Park. Friday, 2 p.m. to 8 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Free admission, free parking, free delivery. Utah State Fair Park. Call 833-SPA-SALE or visit hottubandSwimSpaSale.com.
Mom and Dad used to argue about everything, especially about Dad's drinking. It drove me crazy. It got so bad, I couldn't do my homework. I couldn't concentrate. I absolutely refused to let any of my friends come to our house for any reason. I would have been humiliated if anyone found out how much my dad drank and how loud my mom screamed at him. My family went from totally crazy to quiet, calm, and even peaceful. The only thing that happened is my mom started going to Al-Anon family groups. Her relationship with my dad really changed. I asked Mom if she would take me to her Al-Anon meetings or to Alateen. I wanted to see if I could have a better relationship with my dad. I'm sure glad I did. If someone's drinking troubling you, you might be surprised at what you can learn in an Al-Anon or Alateen family group from people just like you. Call 1-888-4-ALANON or go to alanon.org.
Jeff Kaplan. I'm energized by breaking news. First of all, because it's right now, and second of all, because in many cases the audience needs to know. There's no more important service that we can provide, and I find it critically important to get more details to the audience as quickly as possible. There's nothing more energizing than that for me. Not at all. The most important thing we do is breaking news. I am gratified that so many people listen to me every afternoon on KSL, but what they don't know is that there are so many people behind the scenes making it happen, checking on the traffic, answering the phones, making the calls, talking to the newsmakers. They're out in the street, into the field to get the raw information, and then putting it all together so that I can sit in front of a microphone and be a source of information every afternoon. But there are so many people who make it happen. That's what you don't know.
Ride Home with Jeff Kaplan, weekdays 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
At Social Security, we are always thinking of ways to save you time and make things easier. That's why we created My Social Security. Opening a My Social Security account gives you secure access to your personal record and interactive tools tailored for you. You can see if you are eligible to receive benefits, view spousal benefit estimates, and compare retirement benefit estimates at different ages or dates when you want to start receiving benefits. Already receiving benefits? Use your account to change your address, set up or change direct deposit, get a proof of income letter, and more. In most states, you can also request a replacement Social Security card. Save time. Go online. Open a My Social Security account at ssa.gov/myaccount. Social Security, securing today and tomorrow.
Produced at U.S. taxpayer expense.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Salt Lake City didn't waste any time getting rid of political graffiti on the whale statue in the 9th and 9th neighborhood. Second, the White House has been trying to explain what President Biden meant when he said supporters of former President Trump were garbage. And third, was it okay for the Utah County Clerk to track down the ballots submitted by a politician? Well, that state senator says no. 46 degrees, mostly cloudy in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources. I'm your co-host, Rusty Cannon, here with Taylor Morgan. It's been a fun couple of hours. We're going to round out our last segment here, sort of on a riff, right? Let's say what's on our mind. I'm curious to sort of delve into your mind and what you're seeing with your expertise in your line of work.
That's a dangerous place to go, Rusty.
Okay, well, let's go there. We're all going there together.
Okay.
What are you seeing as far as trends, voting trends in Utah? I think there's some interesting snippets here in Utah that I think should be mentioned.
Yeah, Rusty, I'm really excited about a few different trends that we are seeing play out nationally in this election and also locally here in Utah. And what I am most enthusiastic about right now is the huge level of confidence in early voting and by-mail voting among Republican voters across the country. Now, we know that back in 2020, Donald Trump and some national Republicans discouraged Republicans and Donald Trump supporters from participating in the election 4 years ago via early voting and by mail.
Yeah.
And it's never a good idea. Just as a pro tip as a campaign consultant, it's never a good idea to tell your supporters not to vote in any way. So with that in mind, that cost Donald Trump the election, and it cost Republicans elections in key states.
Yes.
It may have tipped the scale in the Senate at the time as well, right, in the U.S. Senate. So right now, fast forward to 2024, Rusty, we are seeing that the proportional share of Republicans voting early and voting by mail is more than double this year what it was 4 years ago.
Really?
This is huge. Like, for example, in Georgia, we are seeing that of the votes cast so far, about 41% of those votes are Democrats, 40% are Republicans.
Wow.
That is way, way, way up from where it was 4 years ago. So, listen, it's not a partisan thing. I'm not happy about this because I'm a Republican or because I want one candidate to win or the other. I am happy because it is a very, very good thing when more people participate in our process. And with all of the, false claims around elections that we have dealt with for the last 4 years, Rusty, I am heartened by the fact that people are voting. And those who previously may have had doubts about the process are now fully participating in it. And again, we're seeing that in swing states. We're seeing that nationally. We're seeing that right here in Utah.
So talk to us about age. It seems like from the statistics that I've seen, young voters, as much as we want them to, are still not voting.
Young voters, bring it in. Let's talk for a minute.
It's abysmally low numbers.
You put down your phone, okay? Like, stop scrolling TikTok for just a minute. Let's talk about this. Rusty, as of today, only 2% of Utah voters ages 18 to 29 have cast a ballot so far in this election.
2%.
2% of young voters. We're talking voters between the ages of 18 and 29.
Wow.
Now, across the board statewide, of all registered voters of all ages, we're at about 30% turnout right now.
Got it.
So young voters have some maybe structural impediments to voting. It might be difficult for some young voters who perhaps have moved away to college and haven't updated their voter registration. Mm-hmm. Maybe their ballot has gone to their parents' house or has gone somewhere else. Maybe, I know that when I was in college, my address changed every year, if not every 6 months, right? Yeah. So young voters may struggle because they haven't kept their voter registration or their address up to date. And in a state where ballots are sent automatically by mail, they may not have their ballot. Right. So that's certainly a challenge. That's an issue.
That's a fair point.
Young people may be overseas or in another state, like serving a church mission. They may be volunteering with a humanitarian group out of the country. Mm-hmm. right, they may be on a study abroad in Germany. I don't know. There are some issues there, yes, Rusty. But here in Utah, you can participate in our elections. If you are a Utah resident and a Utah voter and you're registered, you can still vote. It's possible. Young people, I'm looking at you.
Yes. Good point. Good point. I wanted to mention something as well. A lot of people getting fairly amped up as far as the presidential election, and you can't fault them. This is a big one, like they all are. I recently listened to a great audiobook, Confronting the Presidents. Bill O'Reilly and another author had written it, and they did it basically a short chapter on every single president through the present, and where they came from, what they said, what they did, and then they move on to the next chapter, the next president. But after listening to that, one interesting perspective that is, I think, good to remember, this is not the first time that we've been down this road. We have had a wide range of presidents in this country, some very, very good ones and some very, very bad ones. And, 100 years ago, 100 plus years ago, all kinds of examples that you can read through history where some of them did not do good things and some did some very good things. And so no matter what happens, although it might not be on election day, it might be, a week after or whenever we're going to find out, the sun will come up the next day, regardless of who wins.
Yeah.
I hope there's not violence. I hope that things are calm. I just wish everyone could remember that, based on history, this is not our first rodeo in this sense. And no matter what happens,